test.
Testing. Good evening. It is 6 o'clock on April 28, 2022. I call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. We'll start with the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Branham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Prior to me calling forward the students, I know everybody in the room knows that we had a terrible tragedy in our community this past week, actually right down the street here. And first of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Wade and Mr. Chapman and all the administrators who were involved in making our building here available as a meeting spot. I know we're very happy to be good partners with our city people. But before we get started, could we please all just offer up a moment of silence? It's my understanding that Officer Barr is actually being laid to rest right about now. So if you'll please join me in a moment of silence and respect. Amen. And now I'd like to invite our two students from Brooklyn Casey High School up to the podium around here. I think I saw Alejandra and Caroline walk in. Alejandra Rubio is going to give us our invocation, and she is a senior at BC, where she is in the top 10% of her class and is president of the International Club. She has been in Honors Choir, Latin Club, Mock Trial Club, and the Gifted and Talented Vocal Performance Program. Alejandra is in the Tri-M Music Honor Society and made the American Choral Directors Association in 2021 and All-State Honors Choir for 2021-2022. She sang the national anthem several times at BC football games and ceremonies. Alejandra is in the choir at Our Lady of the Hills Catholic Church, where she occasionally directs the Spanish choir and is a cantor for the Spanish and bilingual masses. She is a member of a community group called More Justice, which fights for equality. Alejandra will attend the Honors College at Lander University and will major in nursing. So welcome, Alejandra. We'll let you go in a minute and give our invocation, but let me introduce Caroline first, too. Caroline Pittman is giving us, hello Caroline, our Pledge of Allegiance. She is a senior at Brooklyn Casey High School, where she is a member of the BC Varsity Cheer Team. She is a member of the Honors Choir also at BC, and she is also enrolled in the cosmetology program at the LexingtonTwo Innovation Center. Caroline hopes to receive her cosmetology license in June. When she graduates from BC this year, Caroline plans to attend the University of South Carolina and major in elementary education. Thank you both for coming this evening, and we'll start with you, Alejandra.
Heavenly Father. Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing everyone to meet here today safely. Thank you for all of the many blessings you have given us. We offer our immense gratitude for all that you have provided for LexingtonTwo community, students, teachers, and staff members. On behalf of all of us who are gathered here tonight, we come here seeking your guidance and wisdom as we navigate through these harsh and difficult times of this world. Lord, we ask you to enlighten the discussion and decision-making that takes place this evening. We pray that we feel your presence during this meeting because you are with us wherever we go. We pray that this meeting focuses upon you and your plans for us as a body of believers. Help us to be unified in the making the best possible decisions and to effectively carry them out. We ask for peace, strength, and your hand of protection over the schools, community, staff members, and students. Continue to remind us that what we do here today and in the future is for your greater glory and the service of others. We ask all these things in your name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ladies. Enjoy your evening, and we won't make you stay and sing the national anthem, but we'd probably love to hear you do it.
That would have been a great idea. All right, so the next item is the consent agenda. With no objections, the consent agenda stands approved as presented. We did not have anyone sign up for the public participation period, so we will move to honors and accomplishments of students and staff. The first item is recognition of LexingtonTwo SC Junior Scholars. Dr. Brooks.
Yep, Madam Chairman, members of the board, we want to welcome our parents as well as our family members, students, administrators, school counselors to our event this evening. We are so excited to be recognizing and honoring our 13 8th grade students who qualified to become South Carolina Junior Scholars. The South Carolina Department of Education has provided each student a certificate and their parents a bumper sticker. So make sure you get it, parents. The South Carolina Junior Scholars Program was established by the South Carolina Department of Education during 1985 to identify 8th grade students with exceptional academic talent. This program reflects the growing statewide effort to improve education in South Carolina and responds to the needs of students possessing unique abilities. The purpose of the program is to identify students and provide opportunities that will facilitate their intellectual growth, broaden their individual interest, and promote their scholastic achievement. A student can become eligible for the Junior Scholar Program by either scoring 550 or higher on the advanced evidence-based reading and writing section or 530 or higher on the math section of the PSAT. The PSAT test is a preliminary test designed for high school students and is therefore very challenging for an 8th grade student. So you are to be commended, students, for an outstanding job. We're extremely proud of these 8th grade students for their academic excellence and qualifying for this award. So I'm going to ask for a school administrator and guidance counselor or school counselor to come up, and we're going to start with Busby. Students, I'm going to ask as I get ready to call your name, if you will come stand beside me here and sort of close. I'll move over this way because we want our audience on the outside looking in through the cameras to be able to see you. So we're going to start with Busby. Bachelor's. All right, so our first student is Jason Michelson. So if you'll come up, Jason, I want to tell you a little bit about Jason. He wants to be an engineer when he grows up. He enjoys playing the oboe, and he is also 4th best in the state, and he knows that because he made All-State. So he truly is an outstanding oboe player. So congratulations, Jason. Our next student is Kenny Peterman. Kenny grows up, wants to be a film director, enjoys learning about marine biology, and loves everything about music. I love playing it, listening to it, and learning about it. So congratulations, Kenny, on a great accomplishment. Fulmer, you're next. So if I can have administrator and school counselor come up from Fulmer. I'm going to point out while they're doing that, I want you to pay attention. We're getting ready to build a performing arts center down the road. I want you to listen to all of these bios, see if you notice anything when we get to the end. All right, our first student from Fulmer is Carly Bryant. So Carly, if you'll come on up, stand right here beside me. Wants to be a veterinarian when she grows up, and her special interest is art and animation. Awesome. Congratulations. Anthony Carr is our next student. Okay, Anthony is not here, wants to become an actor, and likes to plan parties and other kinds of events. So I don't know if y'all know that or not, but now you do. Our next student is Avery McCree. Avery, if you'll come on up. When Avery grows up, she wants to be an actor, a musician, a performer, or she wants to be a substance abuse counselor. She has played the violin for about 5 years. She didn't put on here that she is also performing in community theater already and doing a great job. So congratulations, Avery. Our next student is Olivia McIntosh. When Olivia grows up, she wants to become a traveling nurse. Miss Wooten, we know they make good money. She likes to play softball and listen to music in her spare time. So congratulations, Olivia. Our next student from Fulmer is Creighton Pumphrey. Creighton is probably excited that we have the airplanes over at the airport now, because when he grows up, he wants to be a fighter pilot. And the other thing that he enjoys doing a lot is fishing. So congratulations, Creighton. All right, Northside is our next school, so if I can get our school counselor and administrator, come on up. And our first student from Northside is Elliot Bridges. Elliot, if you'll come on up. So we have another actress here, has an interest in career on Broadway. That's outstanding. Enjoys listening to soft music, drawing, playing tennis, and hanging out with her friends. So congratulations, Elliot. Good job. Elliot. Our next student is Ariana Kaiser. When she grows up, she wants to be an ER physician. Enjoys reading, cooking, playing the viola, and Ariel enjoys traveling and exploring different states. Very cool. Congratulations. Our next student is Andrew Roberts. When Andrew grows up, he wants to become a famous musician. His hobbies include reading, playing the flute, playing with Legos, and spending quality time with family and friends. So congratulations, Andrew. And our last Northside student is Emma Starkey. Emma, if you'll come on up. I was very excited to read yours. When she grows up, she wants to be a teacher. And she writes, she believes teaching is a great profession because it inspires hope. And I couldn't agree with her more. Reading, listening to music, watching Marvel movies, skateboarding, and spending quality time with family and friends are her hobbies. So congratulations, Emma. Pine Ridge Middle School is next, so if our administrator and counselor will come up. Our first student from Pine Ridge is Jaquan Huggins. Jaquan, if you'll come on up. He currently aspires to be an astronomer when he grows up, but if that doesn't work out as planned, he also has a major interest in being a translator. That's awesome, when we need lots and lots of them. He enjoys running track, playing video games, traveling, and exercising. Congratulations, Jaquan. Good job. And our final student is Caroline Zuger, sorry. I butcher names all the time, apologize. All right, when she grows up, she wants to be a physical therapist or also in healthcare in some other form, if not a physical therapist. She enjoys doing ballet. She's been doing that for 11 years, and she's also in student government and is on the airport soccer team. So congratulations, Caroline. Good job. And I want everybody to understand that the hard work and perseverance by each of these students is contributed to this scholastic achievement has been all of you who have supported them throughout their journey so far. We're very proud of your academic excellence, students. We hope that you'll continue to pour into your studies and continue to achieve academically. We want to thank you for coming tonight so that we could honor and recognize you. And we also want to invite you to the reception we have for you out in the main lobby, as well as your parents. So if you will take some time, get to know each other, and enjoy yourself while we continue with the meeting. Oh, and I almost forgot, we're going to take a picture.
Yes, and so why don't you, when you come out, if you're just meet in the center of this lobby.
Congratulations to our junior scholars. All right, next up is our administrative divisional reports. First one is the Superintendent Report. Item A is the Performing Arts Center and District Education Center update. Dr. Wade.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
That is quite the crowd.
It is quite the. It just leaves a bunch of excited people in their wake.
Yes.
As I know in terms of the development of the project, I know the board had an opportunity last week to go out onto the site and kind of see for themselves how much progress has been made. For everyone's continued information, those can always continue to happen. The only thing Thompson Turner asks is that they're given 24 hours notice, so that way they can have someone there ready to go. But it's, don't think it's a hassle or an interference or inconvenience, because it's not. In terms of, I know with the weekly updates that the board receives, the district office and the board receives, we put in some nice aerials in there. Thompson Turner told me that they will continue to provide aerials every so often, so that way we can kind of have a time lapse of all the work that's being done and something for everyone to be directed towards. The biggest item I want to bring, I had some good conversations with the town of Springdale involving the utility and power lines. The board may recall that, after we had that enlightening presentation, that we also found out in Forest Acres that through a multiple public governance consortium, they were able to get a reduction in the fee of what putting those utilities were underground. That happened over in Forest Acres. So in talking to the town of Springdale, they're obviously more than willing to help us out as they continue to show that they are. And so one of our next steps are that we're going to have a joint meeting with Dominion Energy and try and see what we can do, because obviously if we're able to get a reduction in this or what have you, then that's also good for the larger town of Springdale, especially as they look forward to future developments that are on the horizon. So that is something I hope to have more information for the board about in May.
All right. Very good. We're loving the aerial views. Love the in-person more, but that does help a lot with understanding the progress each week. So, all right. Very good. So the next update is the legislative update.
A lot happening here. I know for everyone's information at home, the LexingtonTwo hosted a legislative breakfast the other month, and LexingtonOne continued that tradition. So we're very excited that Lexington County school districts are communicating with one another and with the representatives about what is occurring in terms of K-12 funding. And I felt that breakfast was a good opportunity for everyone. I think had a lot of good conversations, and there's obviously a lot happening in terms of, over at the State House. In terms of my report to the board, I put in there a nice comparison for everyone about the differences, the significant differences between the House and the Senate versions, where you notice, like in the House version, in theory, if we had to follow everything to the letter, which it says, we would be, without even lifting a finger, 900,000 in the hole. But then if we do the Senate version, then, we're 3.5 million in the black. So there's a significant swing, and it obviously matters. And it's one of the things that I think has been a recurring important conversation, especially in Lexington County, is basically how these funding formulas are adversely affecting the school districts. And I think that's a really tough tough description to really lock down for a number of different reasons, because I know within our county we will have, Lex 1 and Lex 5 rightfully showed that they would be losing millions in dollars and be having to make some interesting financial decisions, while in our case, while we fare much better, is kind of like is having that conversation about, well, what does better really mean? And in having conversations with other superintendents, it's like they may, on paper, according from the state, be getting some additional money, but when you take into consideration what their annual operating budget and their circumstances are, there are some that on paper look like that they're actually in the black, and they're still actually turning out to be in the red, which is forcing them to have to make different types of discussions about, they are almost having to immediately and drastically weigh the option of increasing debt millage, which we do not have to do, because they're trying to move over so much that they have within their operating fund on all over to the debt millage side. And those are the types of, I think, conversations and stories that we're going to be seeing from school districts across the state. And what makes Lexington 2 in such a unique and positive position is twofold. One is we really don't have anything in our operating budget that can be moved on over to CPIF. Is that correct, Mr. Crocker?
It is.
And the other one, too, is a lot of school districts have already either spent or have encumbered their ESSER money. As the board knows, we did not go out there and quickly spend tens of millions of dollars. Of the 33 million, we've only spent, I believe it's 7 or 8 million, without double checking myself right now, but off the top of my head. But there's a lot of school districts that don't even have the available money to cover whatever anticipated deficit that they have. So we are very much in a good situation. Obviously, we know which version of the funding bills that we prefer, cough, Senate, cough, and we hope for the best in terms of, where this process is going to go. We know that there's a lot between the House and the Senate to solidify. One interesting wrinkle that's been slowly coming out is that now we have legislators talking about just doing a continuing resolution until they figure out this whole thing. And apparently there's a few sticking points publicly. There's the whole matter about the significant tax breaks that the Senate's trying to push, but then also kind of, behind the scenes, there's a lot of frustration about how a lot of House bills got stalled in the Senate and where that's going to go. And that's some of those you can see there. They're mostly tied to instruction and what have you. So it'll be very interesting for us as we kind of see in the coming weeks. But I hope the breakdown in proposals gives you an idea how it affects Lex 2. But I can tell you after hearing other districts, we're sitting in a better position than most.
Very good. Any questions, comments?
Madam Chair,
Yeah,
I just had
Mr.
one
Branham.
point. Our local senators and our representatives have been really in tune with the board. And at both of the legislative meetings we've had, this board had full attendance. So not to clap our own back, but there's good collaboration between the local elected officials across the board in this district. So that's something, and as well as Dr. Wade working with all of the parties. So no matter where it comes out, at least we're fully engaged in it, and that's a big positive.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Bray. Anyone else?
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Ms. Kessler?
I have a question about the ESSER, but it can wait until we get to the next topic, because in the next topic you bring up the ESSER money and and I see the amount that we got from it. I'm wondering how much of a balance we have in each of those accounts. And is there a way that we can get a spreadsheet of how we've spent that money, or do we know how the money that's been spent has been spent?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. In the ESSER 2 and the ARP, do you have the balance of that fund, or do you want me to wait until you get to the next topic?
I can
Because
do
Dr.
either
Wade
or.
mentioned it, okay? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Very good. So we'll cover that when we get to the, okay, awesome. He did mention it, and yep, it'll work here or the next item. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Wade. So we'll move to finance, And Mr. Crocker, however you want to do it, we can start with the monthly financial reports, and then we can, and then it'll fall into the next one.
Sounds good.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Wade and members of the board, you will find your monthly financials for March 2022, the first being the revenue, and we are slightly up from where we were last year. Projecting out, we should be slightly above where we budgeted. We're a little less on the expenditures overall, and that's partly due to having the carryover of the additional year with state funds and also with ESSER funds. The third reports the pupil activity funds. And the last is the capital project commitments. And I'll be happy to answer any questions the board has.
Any questions? All right, without objection, the monthly financial reports are accepted as presented. We can move to the federal funds report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To your point, Ms. Kessler, so far with what we have spent last year in FY21 and this year in FY22, we still have approximately about $22 million left between ESSER 2 and ARP. Yes, ma'am. About $22 million. If the board has any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
All right, any other questions? Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Crocker.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Now we have the Human Resources report. Item A is newsletter from induction of end-of-year survey. Dr. Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Wade. Tonight we have Mr. Philip Raven coming up. You'll remember Mr. Raven is our district mentor coach, our leader of our beta pilot that we have going on this year. Going to give you an update on the program, our ahas, some of the things we've thought about already, and what our intentions are moving forward. Philip?
Thank you, Dr. Cooper. Thank you, Dr. Wade. Thank you, school board, cabinet, esteemed guests, colleagues. On the overhead screen, you can see our spring induction newsletter. One of the things that we talked about doing this year was trying to increase communication between the first-year teachers and those that were providing assistance to them. And so we came out with a newsletter, and we kind of piloted it this spring, and we were very proud of sort of some of the things that it touched on. You can kind of see it had some lighthearted stuff about spring fever. It had information about testing coming up and some reminders that they might need for the end of the year. We asked about their needs to make sure that their physical, social, and instructional needs are being met. And then we also advertised a STEAM lesson that we did with several of the teachers. On the board docs below that, you'll see kind of a transcribed version of the Google form survey we filled out, or we sent out to all the new teachers. And this was able to provide us with lots of feedback and some qualitative and quantitative data that we can use to kind of determine how our program moves forward. So this year's been sort of interesting. I'm going to go ahead and transition over to the PowerPoint presentation. If you by chance printed a copy, there was a small update this morning that went out. But this has definitely been a year of first. And so sometimes when we're in education for a long time, every year just kind of goes into the next, and that will kind of blend together. But sometimes it's important for us to take a step back and realize that for hundreds and hundreds of students, this was their very first year in school. And for 50 teachers, this was their first time teaching students in the classroom. And we have several mentors that had never actually served as a mentor before in our mentoring program. And this is also the first year that we've had this mentor coach position. So we have a lot of new parts and new people, and we're trying to make sure that as we progress with this into next year, that we're kind of rolling on all cylinders and making sure that everyone's needs are being met. That's a big part of what we can do to help support these teachers. So with the next slide, you can see the human resource department, we've got vision statement and mission statement, and our vision statement is actually on the board. We're going to inspire employees to achieve personal and professional excellence, and by increasing professional excellence, we can improve instruction, and when we improve instruction, we can improve the education that students are receiving. And so when we think about human resources, a lot of time we only think about hiring new candidates and helping people transition into retirement, but a big part of that is making sure that the people we do hire have the resources that they need to be successful. So we're trying to constantly improve instructional outcomes by increasing capacity, building that efficacy within new teachers. And it's important for us to remember that just like students need differentiated learning, teachers need differentiated professional growth and development. Not everybody is in the same situation. Nobody really is. And so depending on your school, the students you have, your background, how you were trained to become a teacher, there's all these different factors that are going to determine what your needs are. And that's going to be very different from somebody right across the hall from you. And so with that, we're looking for new ways to support teachers and some creative ideas, and kind of piloting some things that other districts aren't necessarily doing, but we want to be on the front edge of how can we best serve our employees. And so when we think about the mentor coach, it's just another layer of support. We have, at the school level, we've got administrator, we've got coaches, we've got mentors. At the district level, we've got a coordinator for teacher effectiveness, and we've got the human resource department there. But this gives another set of eyes in the classroom. My goal is never to be down at the district office all the time. It's to be in the classrooms, visiting with teachers, seeing how the instruction's going, seeing what they need, and how we can help them, because happy teachers make happy students, and happy students learn the best. And so we're all kind of working towards the same goal. We've been able to use some data from clinical observations in the classroom and from like the survey that was mentioned, ad lib comments, and just side feedback that has been able to drive some of our decisions on things we've been able to do. This position has been able to open up lines of communication between teachers in the schools and the district office. So a lot of times new people don't know who to contact. They know their principals, but they don't always know who the district resources are or what tangible resources are available in the district. So we're trying to connect the two together. Back in August, when we did our teacher induction training, our focus was building a strong foundation. And so that first few weeks of school, we did pulse checks, and we went into classrooms to see how people were doing. And that was really as much of anything to check on their emotional well-being, because those first few days of school are overwhelming. And there's a lot of things that sort of came up that maybe teachers weren't prepared for. Like in college, they don't talk to you about doing like a lunch list or getting kids out to bus or dismissal and things like that. And so when we go through these teacher programs, a lot of times we focus just on instruction, assessment, and planning, and we don't think about the logistics that are involved in surviving day to day or week to week. And so early on, it's important to check in with those teachers and make sure that they're in the right place and that they are feeling like they have the support and access that they need. A lot of what we did early on was responding to logistical issues. We increased walkthroughs as we kind of progressed in the year. Of course, people are nervous when you first come in their room, but once you develop that relationship with them, they know that you're there to help and support. And then eventually by mid-fall, we started doing full-blown observations. So the SCTS 4.0 rubric that the teachers will be evaluated next year as a second-year teacher going through the evaluation process, this was a practice run for them. And we didn't make it challenging by putting like numerical scores on things. We just provided feedback, just not even opinions, just data-driven feedback to help them kind of determine what are areas that they are strong in, that they want to kind of refine, and what areas do they need some growth in to kind of boost up their ability. And so when we did these observations, a big part of it is actually meeting with the teacher before the observation and after the observation, and that allows them to kind of cut down the barriers. They know that I'm coming in, they can put on their best lesson, and we can talk about what happened and how it worked. Or they can choose their most challenging class, and we can talk about classroom management and engagement. So teachers really have a lot more choice with the district mentor role, because they're able to identify needs and vocalize needs that they have that may not be being addressed in their buildings. One of the things we did with our monthly induction meetings was sort of hone in on certain indicators that teachers were struggling with. For new teachers, most definitely engaging students and managing behavior. That is the old classroom management indicator now. And so that is something that all teachers have to develop through a few weeks or maybe a few months of being in the classroom. We also coordinated with the instructional department to have people that are at the district office meet with people that are in the classrooms and vice versa. And sometimes it's because they don't know what to teach next or how long to stay on a topic, or they need a new idea for how to incorporate a new technology. And so we've been very successful with working on some STEAM lessons with some teachers and helping some teachers that were sort of at a point where they wanted to grow more. They felt like they had established themselves in the classroom, and then they were looking for further professional development to help them sort of extend what they're learning into the classroom. So when we think about trends and takeaways, teachers definitely need to feel appreciated. Yesterday in this room we had a celebration event to recognize those first-year teachers. Some of you board members were able to make it, and we appreciate that. But one of the things, that everybody wants is to feel valued and loved and appreciated and respected. And so it's important when you have new people to make sure that they do feel that way. And we've learned a lot about social emotional development, and we've kind of, as a country, kind of come out of our shell where we talk about these things now. And it's important for us to know that this affects the workforce. And if you don't keep morale where it needs to be and you don't have people who are motivated, then that's going to impact attendance and instruction and all sorts of trickle-down items. Some other takeaways we looked at were teachers that really want to have clearly defined plans and routines for that first week of school. And so one of the things we did sort of as a response to that was create something called the Induction Mentor Guide, the LexingtonTwo Mentor and Induction Guide. And this gives 40-plus concrete activities that mentors can do with their teachers to sort of help them understand like where the copier's at, how testing works, what an IEP is, and all the SPED acronyms. And so we've been able to sort of expand our offering of what we were able to do. Before this position was around, we basically focused on the state induction process. Now we're able to support the individual needs of the teacher. And as we move forward in the workforce, that's the way society is moving, and so it helps us to better accommodate the people that we've hired. Teachers need the professional development that's going to be catered to their needs. A lot of these new teachers were struggling with ML and SPED and different categories of learners that may have different needs. And so a lot of times if you're coming out of an alternative pathway to education, you don't have a class that you took on teaching special education. You don't have a class you took on teaching different language learners. And so one of the things that teachers really said that they needed was these additional supports. And so we're offering a Spanish class that people can take. We're offering additional ways. For example, if you need to take the praxis test, we have a support mechanism in place for that to help you get tutoring. We also have online testing program we've offered to sort of help people practice and be ready to take that test. When we think about other ways that people are coming into education, we have Teachers of Tomorrow, we have American Board teachers, and so it's important that regardless of how they got here, they're here now, and there are people, and we take care of them, and we need to make sure that their needs are being met, and we can do that by keeping those lines of communication open. So one of the suggestions that we've come up with for next year is to kind of increase some of the professional development that we provide the teachers in the fall. So in August, we're going to have PSTA come in at Palmetto State Teachers Association, and they're going to also work with our teachers on professionalism and teach a little class called the Ethical Educator, which kind of helps you determine some appropriate behaviors for teachers and things that will keep you employed and happy and progressing with your career. We also looked at trying to expand the mentoring program to include second-year teachers. And so one of the ideas that we're talking about is how people that are going through that evaluation their second year, they still need support in the classroom. And so by having a principal and a peer evaluator come in, those people are actually evaluating and judging that teacher. But they may still need someone else to talk to about ideas or resources or how to teach something differently or how to reach a certain student. And so they're going to be given a mentor, assigned a mentor, so that we can support them beyond that first year to ensure that they're being successful. Again, when we think about the role of the mentor coach, we're constantly looking for new ideas to make our program better. And so, sort of to wrap things up, I'd be glad to take any questions, but ideas that you have, things that you want to see going on, let us know. If there's comments or feedback that you're getting that's not coming to us, then let us know, because we want our program to evolve and change to meet the needs of the teachers. And nothing is set in stone, and so we have the flexibility to go ahead and tweak programs and alter things in order to be able to meet those needs. And so at this time, I'll open the conversation to anybody that has questions or like an explanation on anything.
Ms. Wooten?
Yes, ma'am.
I am sure that I speak for everyone on this board. We were so excited about you coming in this position, and we have heard great things all year. And thank you for this lovely presentation. Keep up the good work. We're excited, and I'm excited to see how you want to continue it as they go into their second year and third year. So thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. We've been trying to do some research and see what other districts are doing and some trends in the state. And so we're trying to be on the forefront of that. So, again, thank you.
Anything else, Ms. Kessler?
Mr. Raven and the entire HR department, I was really excited to be an observer in yesterday's celebration, and kudos to each and every one of you. I thought it was exciting to see mentors and mentees mix and mingle and provide the information back and forth to one another and work cooperatively. So I really appreciate that, and it was exciting to see for this old-time teacher. It was really encouraging. Thank you.
Thank
all
you.
you do.
Thank you. We had fun celebrating. Thank you.
Ms. Branham?
Thank you, Mr. Raven, and that feels funny to me to call you that, but I would give you an A+ on your presentation. Your grammar was pretty good. We'll talk about Oxford commas later, but I'm just teasing you. He was my student, so that's why he's so well spoken, and what a great young man. But Ms. Wooten did kind of take what I wanted to say, because honestly, and Mr. Raven, your personality really works for this position. I feel like, because I feel like people are comfortable with you, and that's what's important, because your job, if not the most important job in the district right now, is one of the most important, because we're facing a teacher shortage, and teachers just aren't sticking around, past that 1 to, usually losing 1 or 2 years. And so, the fact that they have somebody like you and their mentees that they can go to, that we're providing these supports, I'm just really excited and passionate about what we're doing to help our new teachers. So thank you so much for everything you do.
Thank you, ma'am. We're happy to have the support of the school board and administration. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yep.
One question, real quick.
Yes, sir.
The second-year mentor concept, is that going to be a new mentor, or do they carry that same mentor along as they go?
So this is sort of still evolving. We kind of want to give people the option, if they have a mentor that's working and that's someone that is in their building and related to their subject area, then we want to keep that relationship going. If it wasn't working, or if we think that they may benefit from, say, somebody who's stronger in classroom management or somebody who's stronger in some instructional piece, then we don't have a problem adjusting that.
So it can evolve. And then I agree completely with all the positive comments. The big takeaway from yesterday, besides excitement, was culture. you could tell there was a culture of people wanted to be here. And again, we've said it several times, while there might be a teacher shortage, that doesn't mean Lexington 2 has to be a teacher shortage. The other districts can have it. Let's get the teachers here. So great work.
That's right. Thank you. We have a lot to celebrate, and we have a lot of things going on in Lexington 2 to be happy about, so thank you.
Yep. Anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Raven, I just want to tell you again, I love this, and it's a must. And we know that when you get in your classroom, they're scared to death. They've got to get that room ready, and some people say it's not that, but you do have to do it. And you have parents' night. You get in your room, and you're just trying to survive. But I'm so happy you're doing it the second year as well. And I know you guys probably do this, but I think it's so important you get in your room and you don't get to collaborate, but to get them in some other rooms, to watch some other great teachers we have, to see, what they're doing. And also, I have my good old Harry Wong book on my shelf. It's a little dusty, but I still love that man.
That's right. He got mentioned at our training this past August, so we appreciate that. And to your comment, peer observations is something that we're working on, trying to focus a way to expand that, especially the scheduling challenges that go along with that.
Right.
But we want to maybe use my position as a way to make that bridge happen.
Great, thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Here, I just wanted to say, if you haven't seen this issue of Palmetto Administrator, we were chosen to highlight what we're doing in Lexington 2. And Mr. Raven is one of the most humble people. That's one thing that I really love about you. But if you haven't had the opportunity, we hope that you'll take the time when you do to read it. It was outstanding. Thank you to Don Chiava for helping us with that and all of our participants. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very good. So we will move to instruction. Dr. Brooks.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I have an instructional update for you tonight, and I wanted to start by talking about summer programs because we're in the process of putting those together, working on how many kids we need to identify to strongly encourage to be there, required to be there, whatever you want to reference it as, and make sure we have all of our ducks in a row. So I wanted to start with Camp Learn Some More. That'll be held at Riverbank again this summer. You can see there the dates are Monday through Thursday. It'll begin July the 5th through July the 28th. The reason it's starting in July is because of all the curriculum work we're doing in June, so we didn't want to overlap those two. At Riverbank, we'll have Read to Succeed camp going on. That is mainly for our third graders, but it probably will have some other grades. Those are the students that have to go to camp in order to be promoted that haven't scored where they need to yet. ESOL camp also will be housed there, as well as our 4K. So nothing new there, but that is on the plans for this summer. And then we will have our special education extended year school. Will be at Casey again this summer. Those dates are June the 14th through the 21st of July. You can see that that runs Tuesday through Thursday, and the times there are 8:30 until noon. You know that more affectionately as Camp Gigi, but we also address academic and speech, and we have our pre-K students all the way through grade 12 that participate in that. Moving to middle school and high school, again this summer we will focus on credit recovery only. In middle school, we'll focus on ELA and math, and in high school, we'll focus on the 4 core, which is English, math, science, and history. So in middle school and high school, you can see those dates are the same, Monday through Thursday, June the 6th through June 30th. Middle school students will be in one session, that'll be 8 until noon each day, and then high school will have 2 sessions, and we'll probably have some students who participate in both of those, but the morning session will be 9 until noon, and then the afternoon 1 until 4.
Dr. Brooks, before we move off the summer programs, has this information already been communicated out to students and parents, and how will it be communicated out? Because I think it would be good with the end of the year coming if everybody is made aware as soon as possible, because these are some great opportunities.
Yes, so with middle and high school, since I'm on that information has been sent to the schools. I know they're in the process of sharing that information. I'm not sure if it's gone out wholesale yet or not. to be honest with you. In elementary, focusing on that, our reaches exceed. We're in the process now of making sure we have identified all of the students, because there's a lot of prep work that goes into that, both from our teachers, our coaches. Kathy and friends are involved in all of that. Right now, for example, there are 182 kids that are qualifying for that. But as we get closer, we will begin sending that information to parents. Same thing with ESOL. We're in the planning process of that now. We're looking at about 120 kids inviting, but we have to make sure they're not overlapping them in camps, which is one of the reasons that those numbers may flex a little bit. And 4K is going to be 40 students. 4K will be 40 students. And so those students we haven't identified yet, but as we test them, they will be, because those are the kids who their teachers do home visits and then transition with them into their classroom in the fall. And then special education, that happens through IEP meetings when that decision is made that they need extended year. So they get that information at that time.
All right, Ms. Brandon, I think she had a question.
Real quick question on summer programs, and I know for some of the younger grades, camps and programs, I know the answer to this, but for as far as middle school and high school, is there any cost to students, children, families, parents?
No, there is no cost for any of these.
Thank you.
And we are providing transportation too for elementary camps. Not middle and high school, but all of our elementary. All right, so moving into our professional development plan, I wanted to just highlight for you, because I had an opportunity to speak to you at the workshop about all the things that we're trying to put into place. And so the instructional team met last week, and I just wanted to highlight for you what our plans are. This information has not gone out to our administrators yet at this point. I wanted to show it to you first. But June 2nd and 3rd, they are aware that we're doing 2 days of leadership. We have our folks from Solution Tree who will be coming in. We already have that established. July, throughout the month of July, you can see the topics that we're planning to cover, and you'll notice that those are topics that you'll find in our strategic plan, as well as other items related to our unit plan, our curriculum work that we have talked about as well. July the 18th and 19th is HR. So you can see I included them on this too, because we try to work together with the instruction and HR. But that's where they will get training on becoming evaluators for the 4.0 rubric that Mr. Rayburn mentioned. And then July the 20th and 21st is our mentor training. So that is where the folks that you saw yesterday actually go through training to be qualified to have a mentee. And then in August, which will be here before we know it, HR has a new teacher orientation, and we also are going to go back to doing an instructional orientation so that we can make sure teachers are familiar with all of the different supports that we have for them when it comes to curriculum and instruction. And those are listed there. And then during InService, you can see the topics that we're going to cover, and we're going to ask school administration to cover. And you can see the letters training is a reading program that is required through the State Department for 3 of our schools. You can see those there. And then professional learning community, I shared with you that we have an associate that will be coming in and working with our schools, and so we have some time during that in-service to kick that off as well. Also wanted to highlight for you the summer curriculum work. We've worked hard, or the team has worked hard to make sure that our teachers don't overlap with the work that they're doing. So you can see during the first week off, our 4K teachers through 2nd grade will be working on proficiency skills. That is basically rubrics so that they can look at student work and see whether they're meeting the standard or not. You'll remember that in K2, we use standard-based report cards versus a letter grade report card. Our hope is that that helps parents really understand what it is that their child ought to be able to do. And so this proficiency scale even goes a little bit further to identify what a 2 is, what a 3 is, what a 4 is. So that's what proficiency scale work is about. You can see that also during that week, the initial unit plan writing for high school courses will be happening, as well as middle school science and social studies. You may remember we've done middle school work with ELA and math this year, so we'll begin that work with science and social studies this summer. Moving into the second week of June, the 13th through the 16th, you'll see that our K-8 teachers will be in. They'll be doing unit revisions to those ELA and math that I just mentioned in both elementary and in middle school. And then June 20th through 23rd, and let me go back and point out, the revisions is based off of what teachers have shared with us this year. So trying to make sure that their voices are heard in this process. And then June 20th through 23rd, 4K teachers all the way through high school teachers will be working on initial plans, a unit plan writing, and I have broken out what those subjects are. In high school, again, just as a reminder, I've shared this before, but we picked subjects that most of or a large number of our kids take. And we started with those. These are not all of the courses, but we will continue to add to every year. Any questions about any of that?
Yeah, I lied yesterday, by the way. I do have a question, so my apologies. This right here is mostly covered by ESSER ARP funds, correct?
Yes.
What type, I'm a huge proponent of this. I think this is fantastic, and I've heard great stuff. What type of, when ESSER and ARP are gone in year 2025, what type of budget is this? Do we need to start planning? What's this cost?
I'm not sure off the top of my head. I can tell you that even before we started doing this, we've always had some teachers working and come in the summer and work on curriculum, not to this level and this extent. I told you that my game plan was to try and get as many teachers involved in this process as we can. The ESSER funds have allowed that to happen.
And our goal is to keep it going at least through 2025.
Yes, but by the time we get finished with that, all of this work should be at the level where we're just doing revisions. And adding new courses.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Ms. Castle.
Will this be a lot of paperwork for the upcoming year for our teachers, or?
No, it is not paperwork.
But it's on the computer.
Hopefully. It is, yes, it goes through, it is in Google, it's not in Google Classroom. It eventually will be in Google Classroom, but we share it on a separate web page that we have for teachers where we have resources listed, and it's by unit. And so in that plan, it has what standard that they're working on, a time frame, because we don't lay out what happens Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but we do lay out how many days this unit should cover. We also lay out which standards it should cover, what learning targets. The learning targets help kids understand what is it that I should be learning in class today, because we want to get to the point where kids are monitoring their growth on the standards and actually know what it is they should be learning. And then it also provides them resources, because we know that teachers right now are spending a lot of time looking for resources on their own. We'll actually have resources, and do currently have resources available for them that are right there. Hopefully all of this is meant to make it easier and all in one place, so that they're not having to pull things from all over the place like we've done in the past.
And the report card just has the standards, and they have to.
The standard report card K2, yes, has the standards. We are in the process of revising them, because I think our first go at it had all of the standards for the most part in some grade levels. Now we've gone back, and the ones that the standards, the essential standards as we call them, that the teachers have identified are the ones that we're putting on there, because those are going to be the ones that we truly try and make sure that every kid masters in that grade.
Thank you.
So you said the standards will be, the kids will know what
That's
they
on
will
our
be.
K2. Our 3 through 12th grade report cards are not changing.
Okay.
At this point, we are working toward standards-based report cards in grades 3, 4, and 5.
So what grade level were you saying that the kids would know, like what they, for
That's
that
going
day?
to be in all of these courses.
Okay.
Because in all these courses where we have unit plans, we've identified the essential learning standards, and teachers have written learning standards with them.
And that's in Google Class?
It will be, yes.
And parents have the logins, obviously, to,
The parents don't have access into the unit plans, but they do have access to the learning targets as the teachers are teaching them.
okay.
As well as the kids,
Right.
because ultimately, if
Because
we're doing a good
both
job,
know it's better.
correct. If we're
Yeah.
doing a good job, teachers should have a tracking mechanism for kids to keep up with,
Mhm.
because as they're moving through that unit, they should see their learning improve as well.
Okay. Very good.
So the other thing that I wanted to share is our bell times for next year. This is for certified staff too. I want to point that out. Not all of our employees, our non-certified, will be on this time schedule because they're flexed a little bit depending on when students are in the building. So you can see with elementary schools, our staff arrival time will be what it is this year. As you go through, we have added roughly about 20 minutes to our elementary schedule. That is in response to what we have heard all year about trying to make sure we have time to get different kids the services that they need. So we did try and extend that time a little bit. So you can see that our first bell will be at 7:25, and then dismissal for elementary will be 2:30. In middle school, our time is a little bit later than it was prior to COVID by just a few minutes. First bell, 8:15, tardy bell, 8:20, with dismissal at 3:30. That's about 10 or 5 minutes, depending on which school it was, dismissal time difference. That is roughly the same as it was before. In high school, you can see that our times are 8:25 for the first bell, with tardy bell at 8:30, which is a little bit later than it was at one time. And that is based off of bus routes for middle and high school, that time being adjusted a little bit, but you can see that we're back to dismissal at 3:30 versus 3:45, closer to 4. And that should help us in lots of different ways. Our early dismissal times will go back to elementary school being dismissed at 11:30 and our middle and high schools being dismissed at 12:30. And I believe that's it. If y'all have any other questions, I'll be glad to try and answer them.
Mr. Bray.
Madam Chair, thank you. 7 o'clock, I know at the beginning of this year, I had heard a lot of things about it. I have not heard as much recently from folks, but I did hear 7 o'clock being super early. And I think 2 of our districts recently voted, neighboring districts did their bell schedule, and it was significantly later. And I know we have teachers in these other districts. Is there a reason that it can't pump back by a certain amount of time? Or what's the thought process between 7 to 3 versus a 7:30 to 3:30?
If this one goes to 3:30, then it means we have to bump middle and high school. We basically need an hour in
We need
between
an hour.
to run the
We need
routes.
50 minutes or
That's
whatever.
correct.
Okay.
We know that 7 o'clock is a challenge for some of our teachers who have children that they have to drop off at daycare. And so one of the things we're working with as we work with our local daycare centers is for them to take in kids at 7 versus 7:30, because that's really what the hang-up is and we're aware of that. It just puts us in a bind, because on the high school end of things, 4 o'clock, when we have students who are playing sports and traveling, they're having to miss class time in order to get all the different places. So it's a catch-22 either way, but that's the reason, is we need an hour to run those bus routes in between.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? All right, thank you, Dr. Brooks. Next up is the operations update. Mr. Chapman.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Wade. What we have today is the operations report. It's pretty much backed up to the last board meeting up until about last week. I know it's a little shorter this time than it normally is, but the highlights that I would like to make tonight are, if you look at it, I think there are a few things in there that will make everyone at the front table smile. When we started in July, Dr. Wade pretty much gave us permission to go into the schools, look at some of the things that need to be fixed or improved. And as you look through this operations report up until March and April, you will see that we've definitely taken care of a lot of the technology needs, our security needs, access doors and cameras. We're almost finished that. It's to the point now to when I go into schools to look at some of the stuff, I'm having some of the administrators and staff members, ask, well, can we do this? Can we do that? And I'm like, I'm gonna have to ask Dr. Wade. And I know he gets tired of me sending these emails with links to things, but it shows that we definitely took a major approach of just getting things done. Another highlight that I like to make is if you look at Brooklyn Casey High School, on the south wing, we finally got those blinds fixed. And just to wrap things up, one thing I would like to say, a lot of times when you're dealing with operations, you think that well, the weekend is here, operation shuts down, spring break is here, but I just want to just say, just give props to Bill, Mike, Travis, and Dr. Wade, because at first I had stuff keyed up, but then when Dr. Wade sent an operation email, we were communicating over spring break, and I think it just shows the dedication that we all have to keep things rolling, and even the staff members and the contractors who were here putting in servers and guys cleaning up and fixing things. So if you have any questions, I have Bill and Michael here, and we'll answer anything that you need.
Very good. Thank you for all of that and getting those blinds. Good.
I am, and I was hoping you wouldn't mention it. But let me tell you, I went by there today with my camera to take pictures. So thank you very much. I read this a couple days, and it was there. But another thing I want to mention is how much better a number of our campuses look with replacement of those unsightly fences that were up in multiple areas. It is finally cleaning up and looking so much better from the outside. Thank you very much.
So that was you that we got the call about somebody taking pictures of the cannon out front and don't worry.
I certainly did, but I got permission to do it. I did call district office first. I got permission so I could go on. I didn't trespass.
No.
Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions for Mr. Chapman? Very good. Thanks for all y'all do. This is a great report, very detailed, and lots to do every month. So thank you. All right. Our next item is unfinished business, and we do not have any, so we can move to new business. The first item for new business is item A, consideration of out-of-state or overnight student travel. 1, Busby Creative Arts Academy, band students, SC band directors, all-state band clinic, Furman University, March 11th through the 13th. 2022 ratified. 2, item is Brooklyn Casey High School and Busby Creative Arts Academy archery teams, U.S. Eastern Nationals Archery Tournament, IBO, Bullseye, and Center Shot, IBO, and, sorry, it's kind of long, and Bullseye Expo Center, Louisville, Kentucky, May 12th through the 14th, 2022.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Bray.
Move that we accept the administration's recommendation for out-of-state travel for the band and archery students.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Wooten. Thank you. Any discussions? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. The next item is consideration of the district strategic plan.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, I'm happy to answer any further questions that you have about the strategic plan, hoping to receive final approval of that this evening.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to accept the administration's strategic plan 21 through 26 as presented.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Kessler. Any discussions? Yep, Ms. Wooten.
Do we need to get final tonight, or yeah? Okay. So I have a couple questions.
Okay.
Okay.
So, still detail. And I can ask, with everything that y'all have presented, the workshop, last couple meetings, all of the plans. So, I do have to ask this, and with everything that is incorporated in here, when are they teaching? Because it just seems like so much. So if you'll just kind of walk me through it a little bit, and then also make some comments about the report card that is on the end. Of course, you know, we can all read what the grades were, and what your plan is, like I've asked you before, how we're going to get that all improved.
All right, so that's a lot, so if I don't get to something, remind me.
I can repeat it if
Okay,
need be.
sounds good. All right, so looking at, if we go, I've laid out before the academic sections, if you will, and most of them have repeating type activities in them. So a lot of the work that's on here is about, and let me move up back to that section just so I'm not talking off the top of my head. So the way that we incorporated our curriculum pieces is we used the MTSS process, which is that multi-tiered systems of support. And so tier 1 means that every kid gets it. Tier 2 is that level of kid that's struggling a little bit, and tier 3 is a smaller group of students. So we did our plan sort of the same way. So in the tier 1 piece, it's about the instruction for everybody. So that's where you see the work with the unit plans and all of those kind of different pieces that are in there. The proficiency scales that I've mentioned, the assessments, the common assessments, being able to look at those, identify which kids are getting it, which kids aren't, so that we know where we need to go with them and the plan. A lot of that work that's on here isn't work that is happening daily for teachers. It's work that we've done either in the summer or we're doing with some teachers throughout the year when we periodically update, for example. But most of that work is not daily stuff. The work that is in our strategic plan is about making their daily work simpler. Because as I was talking about with the unit plans, everything is laid out in one place for them versus them having to spend additional time looking for resources, all of that. Some of the PD that we're talking about with professional learning communities and all of that is about making sure that we're working together, because when we work together, we're able to share the workload versus if you and I are teaching the same subject, same grade level, and you're doing your own thing and looking for your own things, and I'm looking for mine. If we just work together, we could share that load. And so that is another piece of the training that's in here, is to make sure that we are setting up processes and systems to be able to do those kind of things. When we get to tier 3, we're about working with our social workers, with our other specialists, and pulling them in so that it's not teachers bearing the responsibility to try and fix everything, but we're pulling in those individuals that have specific training to help us with the kids who have specific needs that they have. So hopefully that also takes some of that burden off of the teachers in the classroom.
Okay. And Dr. Brooks, when we get to the tier 4,
Yes, ma'am.
how does that work? How does that person know that they need to be involved with this child?
So schools have a committee that meets. Yeah.
That's what brought me through.
Okay, so schools have committees, teachers involved in that. We first start, all of their kids are learning, growing, doing awesome things. Some kids, they do an assessment and they don't get it. They just need more time. So those are kids that fall into tier 2 because we can't just stop teaching and wait on everybody to get it. We have to keep moving forward to get through all of our standards, but that doesn't mean that we can stop trying to get that kid to understand what they just didn't get, or otherwise we're creating holes in their learning, gaps in their learning. So that's where tier 2 comes in. We have built into every one of our schedules, elementary through high school, intervention time, as well as enrichment time. And so those kids are then put into smaller groups to focus on those specific skills where they need some additional time and instruction in.
So they're in the classroom?
Yes, they could be in that teacher's classroom. They could be shared amongst the classroom. They could be, that's also some of the time where they go out for their ESOL services or their special ed services so that they're not missing direct instruction that's going on in the classroom. So hopefully through our tier 2, smaller group, targeted instruction, we decrease the number of kids who haven't learned what they needed to learn. But if we have other kids who still don't get it, that's where we pull in those specialists. We have another meeting and say, these are the kids who aren't getting it. Why are they not getting it? We try to really get down to the skill. Is it a skill or whatever? Is it behavior? Is it attendance? Exactly what it is. And then we pull in those specialists, whether it's special ed, OT, PT, our social workers, all those, and then we work on that tier 3. So that's roughly how that process works. Okay. And your question about the report card is how we're going to improve it? It is about all these things. If we put in all of these systems and processes, our report cards will be better. But it literally takes all of these things. We can't hope, we can't have.
And you feel like you have all of that in place to do this the upcoming year, to get the report card? I mean, like I asked you before, I love how you're saying, how we want to go 4% more on the graduation rate, or we want to, the SLO, we want this percentage. Okay, I just want to make sure you got what you need. It all looks great on paper. I just want to see it happen in the classroom.
Right, and I don't want you to think that all this is going to happen in 1 year. This is a 5-year plan. And so do I feel like we've made good progress? I absolutely do. Do we have a plan going into next year? Hopefully you just saw that we do. Putting that plan into action is a whole different beast, but do I think we can make that happen with the support of y'all and Dr. Wade? Absolutely, we can make those things happen. And the more consistent and the more of these processes that I've talked about that go into place, you absolutely will see student achievement increase, which ultimately impacts graduation rate.
At any level, teacher, administrator, district office, to be overwhelmed, but you do want to see progress and you want to see it go.
Absolutely.
Paper to real life.
Right. It's just like Mr. Raven talked about. If teachers are happy, students are happy. We understand that.
Yep, thank you, Ms. Wooten. Any
Dr.
other
Brooks.
questions? Yep.
Yes, sir.
Mr.
Quick
Summers?
question. You may have covered this, but as you go through this in the 5-year plan, and I know we've seen and heard this previously, but as you go through and like you're looking at 2% increments annually, are there points or milestones along the way? It's like, okay, we're not going to make 2% this year. how do you, I say measure, see where you
Right.
are throughout the course of the year, not just at the end of the year?
Yep, it depends on which metric we're talking about, which assessment we're looking at.
Okay.
But as part of our unit plans, we'll be building in common assessments. That means that all third grade teachers, English teachers, are giving the same assessment periodically at the end of that unit so that we can monitor which kids got it, which kids didn't, so that we can make sure that Tier 2 is happening. And then we'll follow up with Tier 2 to see which kids needed that Tier 3. Did they get the extra support that they needed? So absolutely, we'll be monitoring it throughout the year.
Right, there, and I figured that there was built-in assessments. Is there any correlation, this is just a question, but I looked at our ACT scores, and then in high school, the algebra, the English, biology, those scores, seem to be lower, but ACT, the number that I highlighted anyway, we were 17.6, and that was lower than the 18.3 for the state. But again, based on those other scores, I didn't know if there was a correlation between those. I thought there would have been.
Part of the issue that you see is all kids take EOC. Not all kids, they have the opportunity to take either the ACT or SAT or ACT. But some of that impacts that part of it, especially looking at it now with COVID, because not all students did that. Some kids who are going to a technical college, for example, they don't need those tests. They take the AccuPlacer, for example, so that plays into it.
Okay, thank you.
But all of those courses, English 1 all the way through, impact ACT and SAT.
All right, any other questions? Yep, Ms. Branham?
Thank you, Dr. Brooks. I'm not going to ask you an open-ended question. I'm just going to ask you that as you're looking through the district strategic plan and the things that you want to implement, because this honestly, is what we're about. Obviously, Mr. Rabin, we got to have the teachers here to do it, but at the end of the day, these scores, that's why we're here. Not just that a child equals a score, but that we've got to be able to show that we're making gains and doing the things we need to do and getting them graduated. I think that's why we always jump up and down on grad rate, because that's just a big, factor. That's an entry level thing that a person needs to be able to have any measure kind of a success sometimes in life. So as you're looking at the things you need to implement the strategic plan and help us raise our scores, can you also be checking along with maybe some of our, if we have some board policies that might need tweaking or changing, or administrative rules or anything like that, that might make access to some programs easier for some students? I just think that sometimes, unfortunately with language barriers and different things and just parental involvement or lack thereof, that, if we've got requirements for, you got to have a parent to sign this to be able to do this or that. If there's ways that you can look at our board policies, obviously keeping in compliance with state law, but look at things that we could do to change to make these things more accessible to all of our students, because I think ultimately, that does help, with our grad rates and all of those things. And I know, when we're looking at the credit recovery or the program you can go on to finish up if you're not doing well. And I think you told us you're starting to pull in students now if they're failing things to try to get them.
Content recovery.
Yeah, what is it called?
Content
recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, and it's just, it's so very, very critical. And I'm very passionate, as you know, about how these things are looking on paper, because right now we're looking at paper, but it's really about a child and a child's face and a child's future. And we have exactly 12 years to get them college and career ready or career ready, hopefully both. And, so I just think we all know how important this is and appreciate everything you and your team are doing. But again, let us be part of the process. If there's policies or things like you think we need to look at or change or do, or things that we can do to make, again, access easier.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Student learning absolutely is critical, because whether kids at the end of the day graduate And even if they graduate and they're not ready to go into the workforce, we're hurting our community. So I take that very seriously every day. It's all about student learning. And the paper, for me, teachers sometimes get offended when we start looking at test scores and trying to identify which kids got it and which ones didn't, because teachers humanly take that personally, but it's not personal. It's about trying to identify so that we can correct it, so that when we get to these assessments, as Dr. Burgraff said today, it's game on. It's just showing students being able to show what I learned this year.
Another thing to that, obviously, we do appreciate our teachers and just the yeoman's task that y'all have had to do, for those of you listening at home, over the last few years, and the administrators in the room. But as y'all know, I mean, we have really great hopes and really great goals, and but I don't want us to get, I don't want anyone in here thinking we're going to try to get into the blame game or anything, because quite frankly, we have children who've lost 2 to 3 years of instruction. And so we're now not only trying to increase test scores and reading scores and grad rates and all of that on a normal basis that we were already trying to do, but now we're trying to catch them up to 2 extra years of learning. And, the standards aren't changing. Third grade standard is still going to be third grade standard, even though they may have missed a lot of content in first, second, grade, because maybe they didn't learn well online or whatever we were having to do at different times. So we do recognize and understand, we're thankful COVID is entering the behind us days, and hopefully it'll stay there, but we do understand that, y'all are not only trying to just do what you've always done, but you're now trying to make up for a couple years of loss. So. Absolutely, and I want to be clear too, we're not looking to beat up any teachers and to evaluate them. We're all in this together. If we're not supporting our teachers and helping them with gaps in maybe skills that they don't have, I'm not perfect. So I don't know that anybody is. So I reach out to get people to help me in different areas, and that's what we're here to do, and trying to support them. So at the end of the day, our kids do learn. We sometimes talk a lot about making up work and all that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, a kid gets each day is important, and if we miss that day, they miss that day when it comes to their learning. We can do some things to try and catch it up, yes, but it gets harder and harder the further we get away from it.
Very good. Any other questions? So one thing I was just thinking about was the mentoring program that we were just talking about, and how it's so helpful for the first year and now second year students if we continue to move forward, with the second, maybe even third year. But if there's anything that you're sharing with those teachers that would be helpful for our more experienced teachers, with contacts or anything like that, that's easy to just share out, that might be awesome to do that. So thank you. All right, if there's no further discussion, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right, the next item is consideration of changes to policies GBEB, GBEC, and ADB. Dr. Wade.
This was requested by the Board of Trustees for us to look at potential changes to these policies, specifically involving alcohol. We have on there our recommended changes, and as well as for the board's information, comparisons to other districts around us. And for everyone's information, I'm not looking for like a first and second reading. If people wanted to just do a first reading, I'm okay with that as well.
Chair? Question before we make a motion. I know that might be a little out of shape, but the recommendation is for the policies, but GBEB, unless I missed it, which is very possible, I didn't see any changes.
No, for the first policy, there isn't. We just left in there since it was related to the subject.
Gotcha.
We just put in there just in case, and if there was anything the board wished for us to look at or change.
Madam Chair, I will make a motion, and I'm going to change it up to be a first reading of policies GBEC and ADB, that we accept the administration's recommendation.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Summers. Any discussions? Ms. Branham?
I really appreciate administration coming back with these requested changes, because clearly we requested them. So, but I think I just really would like to perhaps, delve into this a little bit more, perhaps maybe in a workshop. So that's why I just wouldn't be prepared to even vote first reading yet, because I noticed in one of them, maybe it was GBEB, getting the numbers confused, and I appreciate you putting it there for information. But there definitely appeared to be there it is, about participating in assistance programs and educational programs, and, so some of these things we're looking at in this policy can also obviously be disabilities and illnesses that people might be experiencing and that they need help with. And so I would hate us to be hasty in moving forward without really delving down deep into maybe perhaps some steps or things we could take to rehabilitate people. And like we said in this one right here, whichever one's up, I did that. That's the exact page. Whoever's scrolling, you got to the right part that I was looking for. So that's why I'm not prepared. I would vote no for first reading today, but I'm not saying no thanks for not bringing the changes, because we asked for it. And I think y'all gave us a good first blush look at it, but I still would like, just as a board, to maybe discuss it a little deeper and further. So that's why when I say no, I'm not saying don't bring it back, but I just want to be able to maybe discuss it a little further at a workshop or something.
Madam Chair.
Mm-hmm.
I would amend, or I guess we'll still vote on it because we have the motion in the second. So then I would amend that we move the second sentence in GBEC, the second red sentence that says, further, no employee will possess drug paraphernalia in the premises of the workplace, to the paragraph preceding, which is about illicit drugs. That way alcohol is with alcohol and drugs with drugs. I know that's somewhat minimal, but I'll make the motion to move that sentence to the preceding paragraph.
All right, we have a motion. No. Would you? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. I'll repeat that, but without the motion, just so it's easy. If you look on page 4 of that document, which is being shown, the red paragraph, the first sentence is drug related, alcohol related, which is what we asked for, which is fantastic. Appreciate it. The second sentence needed to be added, but it is added with the alcohol paragraph when it is more of a drug paragraph, a drug comment, and the preceding paragraph is a drug comment. So I think if it makes it, I would hate for us to get in a situation down the line where someone says, well, I was reading the drug paragraph and it wasn't on there. It was in the alcohol paragraph, and there'd be some type of loophole that we would have to fight. It makes clerical sense to me to simply grab that sentence and throw it a paragraph up. So the motion would be just to move that sentence up to the preceding paragraph, assuming there's a second.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Did you second it? Okay, I couldn't hear him. Second by Mr. Summers. Now we would be in discussion again about that. Okay. Any discussion?
We have a drug abuse assistance rehabilitation program. Do we use it?
Ms. Kessler, we had, we discussed our employee assistance program, which is massive and provides a lot of supports we've not had. Embedded within that program is opportunities for things such as this, rehabilitation. It could be of your own volition. Most of the time in those situations when an employee base, with an employee-based situation, before there's an issue, the way that it would work best would be for an employee to ask for assistance from some related service. But yes, we do have that now. We have the ability to offer that, to follow that, and et cetera.
I guess my question is really, is that communicated to the employees? I would assume since it's in here, we would have it. I misstated my question. My question is, do we return to this policy, and do we remind them annually?
We do have an annual reminder of this policy and all other policies, but particularly, yes, we do, with staff conduct, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, any other questions or comments?
I have one.
Ms. Wooten?
I'm going to agree with Ms. Branham on this. I appreciate the administration bringing it to us. Appreciate Mr. Ray's just for the first reading. But I'd almost like for us to have a little bit more discussion, make sure we have it right, and then bring it back for first and second reading.
Okay, so right now, let me get this straight, and Jake, you and Beth, you might can help me, but we have a motion and a second for the rewording to moving some of the language around in the.
We have a motion for first. So instead of having an initial motion and the amendment of the motion, which both had seconds, I will just redo my initial motion to Madam Chair, I move for a first reading of policies, put me on the spot, GBEB and ADB, and with GBEC, GBEC, sorry, Dan it, that we move the second added sentence to the end of the preceding paragraph.
Okay, ready. Do we have a second? Okay, all right. Yeah, so, motion failed for lack of a second, so we will move on and cover this in more detail.
I'll make a supplemental motion. How about that? So since that one didn't pass, could I just, I don't even know if we need a motion, but just ask that we put this on maybe the next workshop, for some more fleshing out, just because I want to keep it alive. I want to further discuss it. I'm just not prepared to move it forward tonight, so maybe I'll just ask that as a request instead of make it as a motion.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, very good. All right, very good. So we will move to item D, which is consideration of contract for use of activity bus. Dr. Wade.
This is something we've been doing forever, it seems, and we've never had the board vote on it, and we need to have the board vote on it. Is that correct, Mr. Moore? So this is a way for us to have a little additional funds for courtesy of transportation using district buses, vehicles, not state ones, to provide services elsewhere if needed. Is there any?
Simply is we've never had board approval to allow the use of our activity buses. And this is basically a standard little contract that says this is how we do it. We make a little extra revenue. As long as it's insured, we ought to be fine.
All right, very good. Do we entertain a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the administration's recommended contract for use of activity bus contract.
Okay. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Castles. Any discussions?
Madam
Branch?
Chair.
Okay, we have a few. So, all right, we'll start with Ms. Kessler.
I actually have several, and I'll try to make them brief. In the contract, you're saying that another driver can drive it with permission. I would prefer that our district, and I realize if we don't allow outsiders, that means that puts a crunch on our bus drivers. But I'd much rather our bus be driven by LexingtonTwo employees who would take better care of that bus and maybe report overheating or whatever occurs on the bus. But I also acknowledge that it could be problems because we don't have enough bus drivers.
I was also going to ask, would that include volunteers? As I know we've had those conversations before about volunteers driving it, and like volunteer coaches. Does that make sense? I know sometimes that becomes
employees in the
washed.
district.
They're volunteers for the district. They're not getting a W-2, but they assist us.
If they're associated with the district in any way, a volunteer in the district, I wouldn't have any problems. But I don't want I would not be
Gotcha.
comfortable with an outsider driving this bus. And then I look on the CPIF funding and I see where we're going to be buying an activities bus annually. I'm thinking, what kind of profit are you going to make if you're putting out $109,000 to $120,000 a year to buy a new activities bus to rent out for somebody else to use to make a few dollars for the transportation system?
And I remember, I think you asked this at one of the previous workshops, and kind of what was done with even previous long-range plans is that this has been actually like more of a placeholder item, where it does not mean we're bound to spend that amount on that item. It's just if needed in case like something unfortunate happens.
When it appears on a budget, to me, that's saying we're going to buy a bus. So I don't know, but I understand your
But
point.
yeah, CPIF is usually flexible.
Okay, and what is the distance that a bus can travel?
Like before it collapses.
Well, no, it says the distance of the bus may be, policies including those limiting the distances a bus may be traveled. What would be a limiting distance?
I think it's more to give us some flexibility should there, like someone be saying, I'm going to, Nevada.
Okay. All right. What does it actually cost per mile for a bus? Does
Talking
anyone
about the
know?
reimbursement rate?
Well, I know
Like
it's
the tax?
$3.90. I know it's $3.90 per mile that they're going to reimburse. I was just wondering. That's figuring gas mileage, but how do you anticipate the expense of a mile on a bus? Thank you. I agree with you. I think Dr. Wade said at one point that there was an $80,000 profit.
Like 70, 80 they were collecting.
Was that one year?
As far as I was told, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So there are people currently using our buses right now, our activity buses. Mr. Bray?
Thank you. A couple questions. First off, I love the additional revenue. I mean, anytime we can find additional revenue, great. I agree with, do we need to flesh it out to make sure that it's actually revenue that is profitable instead of just revenue that's not. To the point Ms. Kessler made about questions with other drivers not reporting issues, the contract does not have any type of verbiage stating that the driver must annotate any type of issues they saw on the bus. Did they do a walk around before and after, is a tail light out, etc. I would ask that maybe we do add something to that. But before we get into what's adding, the prior policies we decided not to vote on and then to push to a workshop. I think it would be great to talk about this in a workshop, but I also am not overly fond of striking this one down. We could have something that happens between now and then. We've been using this, so I would suggest that we potentially go ahead and vote it, get the policy out there, and then refresh the policy when we're talking policies in the next one. So I wanted to put those out. Would the revenue, just to make sure I'm not crazy, it goes straight in general fund, correct, Travis?
In the past, it's gone into the Transportation's People Activity Fund.
Now, does it have to be expensed in that year since it's, no?
Carried over,
It
like
can't
all the
help.
other people activity funds are for each school.
Indefinite carryover?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. What is our state reimbursement rate for state buses? Because aren't those done off of miles? If you don't know, that's
I
fine.
have
But
no idea off the top of my head.
But isn't that not done by mileage, or is it done?
I know you're using state buses for field trips and things like that. We have to reimburse the state. As far as what that rate is, I don't know. I can find out.
And that'd be good for our discussion. But that reimbursement rate that we do if we use it for a field trip, that's by mileage, correct?
I believe it's by mileage and a
Hourly.
Yes, sir.
All right, I only got two more. Originally, Mr. Moore, you said that pending insurance, but we've already got insurance approval on this?
Yes.
I'm told yes.
Okay.
That's one of the things I wanted to have checked. That's, the problem you have is permissive use, and whether it's our use or whether it's basically business use.
Right.
And as long as our insurance folks sign off on it, we're golden. I just want to make sure they know what's going on.
I've verified it with them already and have it in writing that they're okay with it.
And while I have the mic, I would just say, let's advertisements on the side of the bus next, generate some more revenue. That's all I got.
Yes, Ms. Branham.
Well, first of all, I don't see where the fuel thing is addressed in the contract, like that they're paying for their own fuel and stuff. I don't see that in there, so we might need to consider getting that added in there. Maybe I'm wrong. It says $3.90 per mile. Sounds like they're charging for the mileage. Yeah, but so that's what I'm saying. Is the $3.90 a mile include fuel, not include fuel? So that, yeah. So I'd like to get that answered. Who's using the buses? Who decides who uses the buses? So, like, if I want to use the bus, can I call y'all up and, take my kids to a birthday party down the street? I mean, I guess that's another question I don't really. And by the way, thank you for figuring out that we were even doing this and we didn't really know about it. And thank you for coming up with a contract for us, and we've been doing it for a long time. But now that we do know about it, I think it's incumbent upon us, now that we do know about it, just like you bringing it to us, it's incumbent upon us to kind of maybe get some more answers about it before we just wholesale go and approve it, which, Mr. Bray, that's why I would say, maybe I could say, yeah, first reading, because I don't know if the people who are using the buses need the bus this week, so we don't, I don't know what's going on with the buses. Who's using the buses?
It's predominantly something that's been working out more with Midlands Tech or USC, though that's what's been provided to me more of larger scale events or groups, but what you brought up about an individual family, nothing here would prevent that, and it'd be no different, like, for example, use of facilities. And I think that would be very important for how the board looks at this, would really be looking at it has to be pretty much identical, I would argue, pretty identical to what your use of facilities policies are. But with that being said, then that means it makes it a little bit more difficult for school districts to restrict who can actually use it. Nicholas's 2 cents, I don't mind having facilities open and available to people or groups. I'm just a little, concerned about wheels and just highway travel. Just something about that makes me a little bit more concerned.
All ever my concern is that when I said, who are we deciding who gets to use it? And if, you're letting this group use it, Jake, for fair reasons. If I let this group use this building for X, Y, or Z, then I got to let the next group use it, even if I disagree or agree with their missions or anything else. So,
Should we could approve it tonight, 'cause I don't want any Midlands Tech, USC people not, but we can bring it back with some cleaned up at a near future meeting.
Because I think we kind of, I'm going to try and answer both, because I feel like we got kind of two parts. One is like we could have something as a temporary placeholder where, we can forcefully reinforce to transportation that like the superintendent signs off. Control that a bit. In terms of, but I really want to stress, I think the board really needs to consider having policies very similar to use of facilities for use of vehicles. And I think that would take a little bit more legwork to craft, because I think we all know, we've all talked about it, but I think we've all kind of avoided, but we know we got to touch use of facilities as we were having that conversation with the Performing Arts Center. So that might, I don't know, if I wanted to be efficient, I might want to say I want to create a new one for transportation and then address use of facilities, but that would be me.
I just don't want to prevent, like what Ms. Rucker said, if somebody's already got the bus reserved and they've got an event, that us not approving this something tonight would not allow it, but I also think we have a lot of questions, like you said, so.
Madam Chair, what if we amended the motion to say we accept it now with, as Dr. Wade said, superintendent approval until we get the new one up and running?
Could also put an ending date, perhaps the end of May. I'm just throwing something else out there.
The motion's out there as it stands, so if anyone wants to make the amending of it.
We could amend that and put the deadline on it if someone wants to do that.
Was it for first and second reading?
It was not a reading at all. It was just the contract. Because it's not a policy. So if there's an amendment, it would still in the stipulation.
I'll make a motion to amend that motion that this contract language usage would sunset May 30th and then of this year, and then maybe that gives us some time to, because I don't want to prevent people who, because it sounds like we've been helping some people, so that's fine, and I don't want to prevent them from doing what they need to do in May and April, and we walked in and said you can't do it anymore on April 30th or whatever day we're at. So I would just say, how about we sunset it? I'll make a motion to amend your motion that this would sunset, the use and practice of this would sunset May 30th, 2022, unless we have further board action. May 31st.
Do you want superintendent approval?
Yeah, and to also add, it has to be superintendent approval at this point. So add superintendent's approval, sunsets May 31st, 2022, without further board action.
Second.
Okay. We have.
Second up here.
Yep. We had a motion by Ms. Branham and a second by Ms. Castles. For the what? That's what we're doing now, right? Okay, this is for the amendment. So any discussions? All those, being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, so the amended motion carried. So now we go back to the new motion. Any discussions? All right, being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right, we survived. Nice, good work, everyone. Okay, so, all right, we will move to item E, which is consideration of the fiscal year 23 CPIF budget. Dr. Wade.
What we have here, and I believe Mr. Crocker can correct me, but we're following board policy where we have to provide a list of anticipated projects with the use of CPIF to, just from a previous, I just want to let everyone know, like, what's going on at the Capitol Hill, this doesn't affect any, like, this has no bearing whatsoever on our operating budget or anything else. And just for the board's additional information, you'll recall back in August in terms of fiscal procedures and everything, that if there is anything that does change in here, like by 10%, we have to come back to you for approval. I think we did that a month or two ago. Everything, yeah. So, and even then, like historically, you've had some projects have to get delayed or hold off. So this, I want to stress, this has always been a fluid document, and it still very much serves as one right now.
Madam Chairman, before Mr. Bray raises his hand, I know that, and I get the different funds and you know, is not affected, but we actually have gotten a bunch of information and documents in the last month or so, and even this week, about not just this, but also our capital improvements and some bond-related questions that the board's going to be taking up. It's my understanding we have a full financial workshop scheduled for May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, right, which is a week from today. And so I was hoping, since we're going to take up something already dealing with capital projects also at that meeting, that perhaps we could hold the vote on this. Now, I did pull up and double check. And Dr. Wade, thanks for bringing it, because I think the way our policy actually reads is that y'all just have to present it to us for approval before April 30th. So we could read that you actually did do that, because we've gotten it presented to us by April 30th, but I don't know that we necessarily have to approve it before April 30th. You think we do? I know we typically have, because we usually try to not confuse the two, but since we're doing a big, massive financial workshop, I'm really excited about that, Mr. Crocker. That's why I almost would rather table this until that date, because I think some of this may play into some of the other questions we're looking at on capital projects.
Okay.
Not the regular budget, not the general fund.
No, yeah.
It's 2 weeks?
To an extent. No.
So that would just be my position. I make a motion to table it.
Because to be,
I just make a motion to table it because we're going to be doing a workshop on a lot of finance stuff, and then we could easily do first and second reading on it, May 20th workshop.
And just for the board's information, these lists of projects we've consistently been seeing, even with all the long-range capital, this really doesn't, I'm just letting everyone know, it does not affect all the other fun stuff that, you know, we're going to be talking about. This has kind of been more or less expected placeholders even prior to everything.
I just made a motion to lay it on the table until our regularly scheduled meeting in May for additional information and questions that we may have at the budget workshop next week.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Branham and a second by Mr. Bray. Any discussions? All right. Sure. Okay. Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right. So we will move to item F, which is consideration of food service management company. Dr. Wade.
Mr. Crocker.
Mr. Crocker.
Thank you, Dr. Wade. We put out an RFP for a food service management company. The last 2 years it was supposed to come up, but due to COVID it was allowed to be postponed by the state. The state provided a template and everything's been ran by them and approved as we went along through the entire process. The administration is recommending to approve the award to Sodexo based on the RFP scores by the committee.
Madam Chairman. Mr. Kessler can get it.
I make a motion that we approve your motion, your
Recommendation.
endorsement of Sodexo for the next.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. All right, we have a motion by Ms. Kessler. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Branham. Any discussions?
Just real quick, I think they do a phenomenal job. So for anybody in the audience, or I think maybe they're even here, they really help us out a lot. They volunteer to do stuff, and so, if they want to run the commercial when they're advertising their services to districts, they can cut this clip out. But we're very pleased, I feel like, with Sodexo and the quality we're getting from them. So, thank you.
We really are. They're amazing. Anyone else?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I
Mr.
completely
Bray.
agree with that. We typically, when we do contract approval, we put a value to it. Should we do that this time to stay in kind of how we typically roll, or does it not matter? We typically would say, hey, we're going to do this contract for XYZ for $1,242. I don't think our policy covers that, but I just want to make sure we keep it the same way.
With the food service management, it's done on a price per meal, so there's no true
Makes sense.
value to it.
Thank you, Mr. Crocker.
Yes, sir.
All right. If there's no further discussion, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right, the next item is consideration of audit services. Dr. Wade, unless you want to pass it to somebody, audit services. You like to? Okay. Mr. Crocker.
According to board policy, we're only allowed to keep an audit firm for 3 years before we have to bid it back out, and no audit firm is allowed to do it more than 2 consecutive periods. This was the end of a 3-year period, so we put it out for bid and received 2 proposals. The administration is recommending to award the contract to Green Finney Calder, and over the 3-year period for what it'll be, the total cost will be $153,525.
Entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the contract for audit work to Green Finney for 3 years at $153,525.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Kessler. Any discussions? Ms. Branham?
This, and I know there's different types of RFP, so I don't want to have to get into you educating us on all of that, but this isn't my daily world I'm in. Is this type of RFP, was it one that's like a lowest bid RFP, or is it just like that they offer better services or the best services type of RFP? Because I know that we have some contracts that we're allowed to, maybe you're not the lowest bid, but we don't want to work with you or something like that.
The majority of them are based on certain criteria, and cost is only one factor in it. The audit services is actually one of the items that's exempt from procurement, so it really didn't have to have an RFP, but just to do our due diligence, we did do one and had a committee of 3 to score it. And the cost factor was, I believe, 20 or 30% of the overall score. So it's always a factor, but it may not be a majority or even the entire part.
Where's this firm located?
In Malden, I believe. They were the ones who have done it the last 3 years, so if they were awarded this, then after 3 years, they would not be eligible to get renewed the next time.
Mr. Bray?
Exactly to that point. So my concern is that we only got 2 proposals this year. Next year, one of those 2 cannot even compete. So that puts us with no leverage on price point. Just a request that we really kind of push that out there. I'm sure there's plenty of other accounting firms who are in that. I don't know if the proposal period was short or if they, they kind of see this as a continuing option, 3-year contract a lot of times, so they don't waste proposal time for it, whatever it would be. But just that we push for between now and 3 years from now that we can get, anytime we can get 3 or more proposals, it works out better for our constituency.
Very good, Ms. Kessler? Oh, okay. All right. Very good. If there's no further discussion, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Noted. Motion carried. All right. So, now it's time to move to executive session. I believe Ms. Branham has the motion. Yep, executive session.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I feel like the student, for you principals out there that just got caught talking in class, got called on by the teacher. I make a motion that the Board of Trustees enter closed session for the following: consideration of personnel appointments, reappointments, and resignations, discussion of property matters, and consideration of contractual matters.
All right. We have a motion by Ms. Branham and a second by Mr. Bray. Without objection, we will move to executive session. So thank you all for being here with us tonight. Y'all have a good night.